Hello everyone. How are you doing? It's my honor to be the one that introduces the podcast for you today.
Yeah, hello everyone. As you can hear, I'm not alone. As with the previous 80 episodes, today your and my guest is Homu, the author of the YouTube channel Homu Labs. I really appreciate you being able to join us here. Thank you for joining. So, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm fine. Like I said, I'm very glad that I was invited, and I'm looking forward to this podcast.
Yeah, happy to hear to have you here. So yeah, you're the person who, for many players, as you know, for example, for myself, you're just the person who appears there on YouTube and helps us to get through the mazes of the story and of all the plots in Honkai Impact, which is quite a maze. And I'm trying to use some comparison to what you've said previously. Like Honkai is like an onion, right? So you help us to peel this onion. So thank you for being our chef as well.
Yeah, no problem. I'm doing my best. I'm doing what I can. It's very hard because Honkai has such a convoluted story that can be interpreted and understood in so many ways. So yeah.
Especially with the latest developments, right? I think that in the beginning, Honkai's story was more straightforward. I mean, you could see, and from the actions, you could have the idea of what is happening. Even if you wasn't sure what's there, you could always have this quite clear information from mangas or visual novels, games, or other medias that Honkai is providing. But now I think we're in the this kind of forest of interpretations. There is nothing else what we can, no other means through which we can try to understand the story. It's more like philosophy right now only saves us from understanding the story, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like from chapter 25 EX onwards, things started to get a little more complicated. While before that, the story was somehow linear and more focused on the characters themselves and their growth. It was a lot easier to understand. While the recent story arcs are more on the philosophy side, a lot of quantum physics, a lot of pseudoscience, and more world building. And it's very, very interesting because Honkai has what I like to call a unrelatable narrator, in the sense that every character just points out their subjective view on things, right? So even if we have an explanation of some concepts or some things related to Honkai, it's always an interpretation that can be wrong, or it's very limited to a single angle when you look at it.
Yeah, I think it's a valid point, and especially in the very last chapters, I think we have many times heard many different characters getting into person of the narrator, right? So the game is being told by the many people. We can hear Kiana or the Grey Serpent as the narrator. There is a narrator without a voice. So yeah, it's very subjective. But truth to be told, I haven't been thinking about it really. But now, as you say it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and that's why it's so hard to make sense of the lore, because you cannot make a video especially about the recent chapters and say that this is what it is, or this is the concept, this is Honkai, this is Project Stigma, because it's so complex and you can look at it from so many angles. There's no one single right answer.
Oh yeah, and it used to be like this for a while, right? We have been living in the dark for a long time, thinking about, okay, so what is Honkai? What is, I don't know, the last Herrscher that will come, or what is the Project Stigma? And with each and every chapter, we've been getting this drip marketing or drip lore providing, and now, even though that I think it's kind of explained, I cannot really sure that I'm like 100% able to tell what it is actually. I think like right now after the finale, I have even more questions than answers.
Yeah, well, they never truly explained anything if you think about it. We still don't have a 100 objective true answer about what is the Honkai. We only have perspectives, right? We have
Oh yeah.
We had back in chapter 17, we had Otto with his perspective about Honkai being a test. And like I said, he's not wrong, in a sense it is. Then we have the old perspective that Honkai is a force of nature that rises with civilization and is hell-bent on destroying it. Which again, it is true from a different angle. We have the perspective offered by Prometheus and Project Stigma, that Honkai is basically fiction. It's an imaginary concept that wages war against reality, against humanity, which again, it's true. And we have Kevin and Dr. May, who describe Honkai as an extraterrestrial civilization that wants to embrace humanity. And then we have Kiana in the last chapter that says that Honkai is actually a mirror that is meant to reflect humanity itself, and that's why we have Hershers that embody these negative concepts, because the cocoon of finality reflects humanity in that way, and that's why we have Kiana now able to control it, because she embraced all the love and all the goodness that she experienced through her life, and was willing to face herself. So the cocoon reflected that and allowed her to control its powers. So there are a lot of layers, and they are all true, you know. So you can't really describe it.
It's like we are back to this onion analogy, right? But do you feel that we have already peeled all of the layers, or there is still more? Because as you mentioned, there is no single answer to this. But I wonder if in the next chapters we'll be able to maybe have some additional layers. There
will always be more layers, and I'm working on a video right now, not the next one, the next after that will present a new layer that I haven't talked about anywhere yet.
Oh wow! Okay.
And this is something I read on Reddit, and somebody put this very, very nicely out, that Honkai is an observer that wants to be part of the story.
Okay. And well, it kind of rings a bell from the latest chapters. Okay.
Yes. Basically, it's like us. It's like us players, because again, this latest chapter implied that we are also 11th dimensional observers that canonically exist in the world of Honkai Impact Earth, but we observe it from a higher dimension and cannot directly interact with it. But Honkai is a similar being that observes different worlds from a higher dimension and tries to insert itself into those worlds. And that is very interesting when they first go and meet the cocoon of finality. You can see the cocoon basically breaching between the space, like being trapped into
breaking this floor, right? Yeah, and, like an eye, big ball. Yeah.
This can be interpreted as a symbolism of the cocoon trying to break the fourth wall. And that is that can also be related to Lambda's existence, because what is Lambda? Basically, they call it a pseudo-time crystal, but in hindsight,
whatever that means,
pseudo-time crystal here means that she's an embodiment of the captain's wishes. So she basically is our way to self-insert inside the story in the same way as Honkai. And because Honkai breached this fourth wall between higher dimensional observers and the story itself, Lambda is able to manifest inside the story, and we can also, in the same way as Honkai does, we can also influence the story in our way. And that's how we created the Hyperion, and we help destroy Kevin's shield from a similar standpoint.
Oh yeah, the ending is quite emotional when you can actually see all the wishes of all the players, because I think it's in the previous chapter, I can't recall which one, when you can like confirm like what is Honkai Impact to you. I'm not sure if that's the actual question that is being asked, but you can like embody your emotions about a game and put it there. I actually never thought I'll be able to see it again. And then in the very finale, when already our emotions are like, at the tipping point, then it shows up with all the love and all the emotions from all the other players around the world. I mean, it's kind of a epic ending that this game deserves, right?
Yeah. I personally liked it, and I know it's a controversial topic because a lot of people
Okay.
didn't really, from what I saw, a lot of people didn't really like the self-insert part, and I can understand that. But it's more of a personal taste at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah, obviously. But I think like I wouldn't be potentially this much shocked if I haven't seen it previously. So I believe the ending kind of really, or at least for myself, it reminded me of the ending of the Nier Automata. I'm not sure if you've played the game, but there is a very similar like feeling, I would say, at the very end of the game. Have you tried it, or?
Yeah, I haven't played the game, but I heard a lot of people comparing the ending with Nier Automata.
It's a little bit different, but also the concept of all the players coming together to like save the world or save the day or whatever we call this. So yeah, I think like it wasn't this much of a shock to me because I've seen such a concept previously, but I think it's at least very interesting. Like as you mentioned, maybe not everybody liked this touch at the end, but yeah, I think it's kind of a like wink to the players, like, okay, we see you there, right? So we see you being there, and especially what you mentioned previously, right? We might be also being considered as higher dimensional beings, especially after the dialogues from Lambda in the last chapters, right?
Yeah, and this is a thing that was established a long time ago with the Captain Verse events, because we knew from the Captain Verse that the captain is something special. I know in one of the events, I don't recall exactly which one, but I think there's a conversation between Fallen Rosemary and Kong Ming, if I'm not mistaken. I might be, in which basically Fallen Rosemary says that the captain is a being that is comprised of an infinity of different souls.
Oh wow! So it would really make sense from that angle.
Yeah, and you see the captain in story doing some crazy stuff, like he's able to wield 3 or 4 divine keys at the same time, and you can see that it's a very special being, and it's not normal. It has some abilities that are way beyond what a normal person should be able to do.
So, true to be told, yeah. That's true. So we've touched the ending, kind of, the breaking, the analysis of the plot is like one thing. You mentioned that you kind of liked this like personal message being included in the ending, but in general, what are your feelings? I mean, after the first phase of a story ended, like what are your feelings when this story, the 7-year-old story, actually came to conclusion?
It's a very weird feeling because I don't feel sad. I don't necessarily feel happy either.
Okay.
It's more
it's
of
a mixture or something different?
Not really a mixture. It's more, I'm feeling very reflective about the story. I try to take it easy and basically think about all the stuff that I learned about it. I'm more so grateful. Yeah, that's the best way I can describe my feelings. Because Honkai for me was a story about personal growth, about handling some nasty stuff that life sometimes throws at you, right? And basically tell you that you can move on. There are good things in life. After the bad things, you are more powerful than you think you are, and it's important to think about that and not let all the bad things slow you down or stop you.
So I think that it's like the main kind of thema, right, of this game, that to fight it, that it's actually worth fighting these things, the things that oppose you, for all the beautiful things in the world. And actually, I think that not many games actually are touching this kind of deep thoughts and like, as you mentioned, reflective narratives. But it's really deep, I would say, from that perspective, because seeing all the struggles that the characters in the game have, you actually can think about, okay, so I might not be fighting Honkai or dying from the Honkai energy poisoning, but I have my own struggles, right? And I'm trying to be as brave as those girls, right? Even though I might not have stigmatas. So
yeah, well, it's not meant for you to relate to them on a surface level, right? You're meant to relate to them. You're meant to relate with the way they feel, their thoughts, their how they react to the different scenarios they are put in, their mental struggles.
I think I like very much the comparison. I think it was meant in the Post-Honkai Odyssey Part 2, where the characters, I'm not sure who, they are discussing the plots of the Arahato game, and they're saying like, oh, this very beta game that was done like X years ago was really underrated because the characters have been, having a tons of struggles, many hardships, and people didn't like that. And I think it's Bronya or somebody else who meant, hey, but the story is not yet ending, right? There will be a happy ending. They're just struggling because it's not the end. And I think it was also a nice pun, because back then the ending of a Honkai story itself was not yet like going into an end, and many people thought the same thing about the game itself, like, oh, so why these characters are having so hard times, right? This is a sad game, but in the end, well, it's just not ended. It's a happy game with a happy story to tell. It's just it haven't reached yet the climax.
Yeah, I agree, and I know there's the whole meme with the Honkai being a wholesome game from the developers' interview, but I fully believe that Honkai is meant to be a wholesome game, just because it's not always rainbows and sunshine doesn't mean that it can be a wholesome game. I mean, for me totally at least, agree. The feeling of wholesomeness comes from hope. Right, comes from letting you know that things will get better, not necessarily things always being better, always being happy, always being happy. I think that Honkai delivers a lot of on that, especially with the last story arc, because if I can describe this ending in any way, I would say more so wholesome than anything else.
Okay. But still, on your tier list of the chapters, I recall that it was either the best of good or the last of the the best ones. I can recall where it ended actually.
Yeah, it was the best of good, but I was very torn apart because I really didn't know where to put it. So it can be either way, either the best of good or the worst of best. But as I said, it's still a very new chapter, so I need a bit more time to explore my feelings and realize how I feel about it, right? Because right now I have days when I'm wow, it was really good, and I have days when I'm they could have done better.
Yeah. Well, just to confirm, so it's the 2nd of April 2023 when we are recording this, so we are quite fresh after the finale of the part 1. So yeah, but it's good to discuss the topic while it's hot, right, before it stabilize in our heads. But definitely some more time sometimes is needed to appreciate or to see the big picture, to just to relax and get to it with a more straightforward feelings for the game. So Yeah, so what was your best chapter that you've marked like the best of the best? Was it Colosten? No.
No,
Do you
it was
recall?
Nagazora. Nagazora.
Nagazora.
It's number.
Oh, so
It's a close race between Nagazora and the Herrscher of Domination arc. But I put
okay.
Nagazora first. Yeah.
Is it because of the Mei and Kiana's relationship and the and that part of their story, or was there something more, or is like the general feeling about it?
It's more of a general feeling about it. It's not that I don't like Kiana and Mei's dynamic. I really, really like it and I really enjoyed it. But what I loved about that part was more so from a narrative standpoint, how it was structured. You have basically that arc is composed from 3 chapters, chapters 15, 16, and 17. And the flow of the narrative, it flows very, very well. The transitioning between chapters, it's very well done. You don't feel forced from one place to another, and this is something that they really like to do in recent chapters. When you're suddenly transported in another place, suddenly 2 weeks have passed and you have to adjust a little, right? While with those 3 chapters, everything flowed pretty well. The dialogue was very, very good. We really explored Mei's character, how hopeless she felt in those moments. We saw Kiana's perspective, who was still blaming herself for everything that happened with the Herrscher of the Void, and how she saw that by being so self-destructive was the only way she could make things right, like it was her duty, and how those two ideologies basically clashed with one another and resulted in that fight with the two of them on the rooftop and them separating. I don't know. I really liked it, like I said, from a structural, dialogue, and emotional standpoint. For me, that story arc literally checked every box.
Yeah, I think that especially what you meant about the flow and the feeling of the story. There haven't been too many interjections, right, or additional parts. And yeah, in the very latest chapters, I felt a little bit lost. I mean, usually I feel lost with the story and I need to spend like long hours trying to understand, okay, so what actually happened? And what happened first? What's next? You know, who is referring to what point in time? I really wonder how the game or the script writers are doing this, because they're doing a marvelous job on not showing us the answers at the first glance. We just need to like think quite a long time sometimes, at least for myself, right? Just to see all the details and, you know, what was the timeline, what happened at first, why this character used to have this decision or that. I think it's really... I'm not sure if they are overcomplicating stuff, but I felt like I used to have more easy way of understanding the plot previously.
They are overcomplicating stuff, but it's not necessarily in a bad way.
It's just to keep us entertained, I guess.
Yeah, you can very clearly see how their way of tackling story has changed over the years. And like they said, this first part has 3 major story arcs, right? The first arc is basically chapters 1 through 9, which is the initial presentation. We get to meet the characters, we get a little bit of world building, and then we have the climax with the Herrscher of the Void and Himeko. And after that, we have the second arc, which is from chapter 9EX until chapter 25, and they said multiple times that part they wanted it to be more focused on the development of the main trio, Bronya, Mei, and Kiana. So they put a lot of world building in the back. They still gave us a little, but not that much, and focused more on their growth, on Kiana, Mei, and Bronya. And you can see that, because the first arc is about Bronya, the second arc is about Kiana, then it's about Mei, then we are back at Kiana.
Yeah.
And after that, with the third the third part, which is from chapter 25 EX until the end. They wanted to resolve all the plot points that were established through the story until that point, and focus on the world building, on what is Honkai and how does this whole thing work.
Yeah, building up to climax. Mm-hmm.
And when they change from telling the story about how these characters grow to, okay, now let's explore some of the concepts that we established. You can very clearly see that the story became a lot more complicated. And it started with Ado's arc.
Yeah, I think it was the first arc when I actually, trying to just see the story, and I wasn't really able to grasp all the concepts. And it used to be I want to say it used to be a fun game. I mean, it's still fun, but I think around Colostan arc, it was like, okay, so now I can't like play, I don't know, with somebody in the background watching TV or what in some public place. I need to sit down and actually, just focus on every word, just not to miss a point.
Exactly. And I felt the same. Until that point, I barely took notes when I played through a chapter, because the information was very easy to digest. There was no need for me to go into details. And now I would like to show you the notes I took only for Act 1 of Chapter 35. I also posted on Twitter. I think I have over 17 pages.
70 pages.
Yes.
17, okay.
17 pages and over 10,000 words. And those are notes.
Just like highlights, right? Not going into details.
And even after that, I couldn't say that I understood this chapter, because I usually have to play a chapter 2 or 3 times to form a general idea of the chapter. Because even with this amount of attention and notes I take, I still find myself missing stuff, right? And on a second playthrough, I pick up of them, or I pick up when I watch somebody else play. And a lot of times others pick up on them, and I'm like, wow, how did I not get this? It was so obvious.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that I've actually started playing the game around the Colostan arc. So at first I was catching up on the previous couple of years of the story, because doing it from Colostan, it was like, I don't get it like at all, right? So yeah, I think that it must be quite an undertaking to try to analyze this stuff. Actually, if you don't mind, I'd like to switch right now the perspective from the speaking about the Honkai as a game. I'd like to get some more of your personal idea about the, how you as a content creator feel about it. Because you mentioned like just on a single chapter, and we know that it's quite complicated, right? The chapter 35, right? But taking 17 pages of text, and it's not like, even constant writing of this takes a lot of time. Not speaking about actually replaying the game, trying to think about the game, or reading stuff, comments online, or just discussing with people on different platforms. How long it takes actually to produce such a video? Because previously you've been focusing on a single subject, like, okay, so what is the concept of Mobius, or what Elysia did, or what is the actually Honkai and Honkai cores and Hershers. How long it takes, and I mean like in general, or in more, or maybe in the most extreme cases, how long it takes for you to prepare such an episode? Because in the end we are getting like 20 minutes of really well trimmed idea of the like part of the game, right? But I believe it's an hours of work, right, previously, before it can be really projected to the people.
Yes, it really depends on the video. and the idea how much it takes, but it's usually sometime between 2 and 3 weeks for me working on them. But that is also me juggling my real life responsibilities, like my job, like doing stuff around the house and finding the necessary time to work on the videos. So I don't really have much free time, because any ounce of free time I dedicate to making content. But it's writing the script. It used to be pretty chill in the beginning. Now I would say it's the hardest part of creating content with this latest chapter. I would say it's harder than editing at this point, and I could never imagine a year ago that I would say this. But
yeah, I totally feel you. You know, I'm also trying to prepare some story explanations. I mean, they are not as in depth as your content. Actually, to create mine, I'm quite, you know, often also refer to your findings. But I'm also trying to replay the game, to read the stuff. And also in the past, it was like, okay, so I'll, you know, during the game, I'll just put on the auto and I'll do notes in the same time. Right now, I'm just trying to like note every single word, to read it 5 times to understand if those concepts are really speaking to me. Is this sentence having any background meaning? So it really turns into maybe not a nightmare, but it's kind of an uphill battle, I would say. It's nothing close to the early stages of storytelling, right? The previous chapters have been, let's read it and let's say it. But now it's more demanding. Definitely.
Yeah. And when you see a 20 minutes video, always the first draft of the script is double the length, at least in my case.
Yeah, I think that a couple of times you mentioned in the Twitter, like saying, okay, so I have like this much of a content, now I need to trim it back. So it's always like kind of ends up being leaned already much more from the original concept of the episode, right?
Yes. At least this is my workflow. That when I write the first draft of any script, I go all out. I let my mind go free and write every idea that I have in my mind, right? And Perfect. After that, when I work on the second and the third draft, I usually try to read it, try to rearrange some stuff, and always wonder, is this stuff necessary? If I cut this, would I lose the meaning of the idea? And if the answer is no, then I cut it. If the answer is yes, then I leave that part in. And it's often when I go on tangents, right? Or when I write some jokes. Because to save time, unfortunately, I also have to cut out some jokes that I have. And
I feel so bad for this. Maybe we can have some director's cut version. I'd love to hear some more jokes in the videos.
Yeah, but it's important to find a balance, because if you watch my earlier content, I was overdoing it with a lot of edits and a lot of jokes.
I wouldn't say overdo. I mean, depends on which way you'd like to drive your channel, but I think it's also a technique for, you know, the teachers trying to like keep the attention of the people who are listeners, just to crack a joke one every 15 minutes, I think, just not to lose the contact with the audience, right? But if it's a 20-minute video, then
yeah, well, that was my intention. It worked
perfectly.
I will be honest, I consider myself a very boring person, right? And I always said to myself that why would these people stay here and listen to me talking about the lore of a gacha game? They normally wouldn't. So I have to compensate for my personality with editing and make it funny so they wouldn't lose their attention.
I mean, if that was your intention, then definitely, I mean, cracking the jokes from the early, you know, content you've had, it really, you know, made my day many times. So I'm not sure if I can speak for many other people, but I'm kind of missing this in the latest videos. But definitely, I mean, it's always a top content. So
I mean, I still try to keep some, A little bit less in the recap videos, because I want those videos to be focused on the story itself. I don't think that jokes work very well in those, because
that's correct,
it's not the point. But in other type of content, I still try to insert some jokes here and there.
Actually, you know, speaking about the type of content, so recently you have also started streaming sessions, like kind of lore discussions, which are taking long hours. Is this kind of your answer to, okay, so now I got a script, like a long script, I'm not cutting out anything, I just like to share on or discuss with people around these concepts. Is that your answer to the longer type of the content?
Yeah, so why I wanted to do this, because it always frustrated me that I always post videos about a certain topic 2 weeks, 3 weeks, sometimes even a month after that content was released. Because
of the length of the editing and preparation, right?
Yes. They take a lot of time. So I had two options. Either I give up the quality of my content to be able to put out those videos on time, which is something I don't really want to do, or find another way to express my thoughts on certain topics while it's relevant, and still keep my videos the way they are. So this is an idea I had since last year, but I postponed it a lot, and this year I told myself that I will do it.
Oh, so it's not an early concept. You've already had it some time ago, and just these days you've decided to go on with this.
Yeah, it was very hard to start this, because I'm a very introverted person. So the idea of me talking in front of an audience was very daunting at first, and I made up a lot of excuses to postpone it. Right, but when this year started, I said to myself, no, I can't do this anymore. I have to start these lore discussion streams, because I always saw people asking questions and being very confused. So if I can help in any way by doing those live streams, I'm very content with it.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing type of the of content when you can actually interact with your audience, and especially with the subject which have so many like questions or like fields for interpretation. You won't have a single answer to some of these questions, so sometimes it's not easy just to answer that in a short kind of video, right? You just need a longer time to be able to grasp all the aspects of a specific narrative or specific topic. So I mean, I really love these long sessions. The only backdraw I can see is that, you know, if it starts at the very specific point in time, it's not always possible for all the people to like be there to be active in person. Yes. But definitely being able to rewatch it, it's a reward that it's really worth having it. So I really love this.
I will try to experiment with more time zones in the future, but unfortunately in this period I didn't really have much time, so that was 2 p.m. in my time, and that window from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. was the only time I had some free time to do this. But like I said, I plan to continue this. I plan to experiment with different time zones when I'll have the time, and I also plan on streaming on Twitch.
Yeah, I think you've mentioned that in your latest lore discussion.
Yes.
So that's good. So we can see Homu Labs Abyss conquering or fighting in the Elysian realm?
I mean, sure, I'm not going to be very good at it, but yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan.
Yeah, because I mean, come on.
I don't want to do this kind of stuff on YouTube. I want the YouTube channel to be very focused on lore, and
To have a crisp content, yeah.
Yes, have these discussion streams that are very, very focused on the lore of the game, and do that. I'm not really playing the game because I had 3 streams. All of them I think are 3 hours. I didn't play a game. I didn't play the game not even once.
It's just the background or showing videos, but that's a different type of content, as you mentioned.
And I want on the Twitch side to be more relaxed, not necessarily focused on the lore, but more on the gameplay. I mean, I'm still down to answer questions and talk about the lore of the game for sure, but I think it will be in a more relaxed atmosphere.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, it's like having another flavor of Homu Labs content. So that's perfect. I think it's everyone will find something interesting there. But I'm really glad to see that the channel and the level of maybe not level, but the type of content you provide is growing. That you're exploring yourself as a creator. I think it's a great thing to see. So yeah, who knows where we'll end up with. And actually, I consider myself a podcaster, even though I'm doing videos, but I really suck hard when it comes to editing. So I cannot really say I'm a video editor or YouTuber. It doesn't really suit myself. But I think for the podcasts, especially these last lore talks you have hosted, I think it's a perfect material actually to be a podcast. So have you considered maybe just to drop the audio and put it into some sort of a streaming platform when someone can just listen to while driving or something like this?
It's a bit complicated because there's a lot of visual stuff in the live streams, especially in the latest one where I analyzed the graduation trip animation short.
There's a lot of shots to break down, right?
Yeah. So it maybe cut up only the parts where I answer questions from the people. That could be podcast material, but a lot of analysis would be required. Analysis is a bit complicated. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, truth to be told, I was trying to listen to these because I wasn't able to really join to any of these, but I've been listening to them in the background, like doing some daily stuff, like I don't know, washing dishes, or I don't know, just doing some things around the house. So I think even without the visual materials, maybe it can kind of lack some layer, but it's still just good to listen. So just a food for thought. Maybe you can consider that. But I'm really happy that you have right now these longer kind of content also, because I love the very crisp and precise informations and the jokes from your early content. But especially when you've confirmed that it's just a drop of what you're actually preparing, that you're trying to make these videos very precise and on topic. I thought how much we actually lose in the background of editing. So yeah, and how many jokes are left there unspoken. That's a sad part.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. Even in the notes for the live stream, there's still some stuff that get lost because, like I said, my initial notes for Act 1 was about 10,000 words, and the notes I actually used in the live stream were only 4,000.
Wow. Okay. So yeah. There's a lot that was missed in the
but a lot of that is me going on a tangent, right, and doing some interpretation, and the information, it's not lost forever because I always keep it somewhere. I always recycle it. If I do a video that is very similar thematically with some notes I took in the past or a script I wrote in the past, because I keep each draft. I always go back, I always revisit, and if I think that it can be relevant for this new script or this new idea for a live stream, I always try to bring it back.
That's perfect. So we can have some of the content and jokes to resurface with in the future, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. I mean, seeing this kind of new areas that you're exploring or planning to explore, like, casual Twitch playing, have you been thinking about the collaborations with the other kind of, creators of Honkai? There is a kind of like big amount of people happening there, and definitely, I mean, you must have your own channels or other content creators that you're following. Have you been thinking about any collaborations with them, maybe?
It's very complicated. It's very hard to have a genuine collaboration with someone that can be fruitful and meaningful in a way, because it's hard for me, because one, I'm a very introverted person, like I said, right? So okay. I always I have a not necessarily hard time, but I'm always hesitating reaching out to other people. So I don't want to bother other people or make them think that I reach out to them to, I don't know, to show off or something like that. This is one aspect.
Yeah.
And the second is that I have a very, very tight schedule, because I have a normal 9-to-5 job, then I come home, I have to prepare some stuff at home, and usually that couple hours I have in a day as free time, I try to invest into content and playing the game itself, right? Because that's the point of my content. So I don't really have the necessary time to talk with a lot of people most of the time.
No, I totally feel you. I think like my situation as a content creator might be kind of similar. So you just mentioned, right, that preparing one video, even if it's short, preparation for this takes a couple of weeks, and that's the time you're not actually committing to playing the game, because you need to use it to like prepare content for your material. So you could have been playing any kind of game during this time, but you need to prepare the content. So that's the kind of a balance that every content creator must somehow find, right? This proper balance.
And I felt that with Genshin in the latest patches. I think since 3.1, I barely had the time to play the game, and I would like to. And I imagine that if I didn't make content right now, I would have been up to date with all the content, but I still didn't finish exploring the first desert area, and now the next patch we're getting the third one. So
it's growing so fast. But at least I'm happy that they have got back to this 6 weeks release time. I think after Shanghai shut down because of the COVID cases, like end of last year, there have been like a very long time when we have no new patches in Genshin. And later on, I think that they wanted to make it up for the lost time, and every new update was like, I don't know, 4 weeks, and we got another one. I was feeling so panicked.
5 weeks, I remember that. That was crazy, so many updates in that time. But it's interesting that they wanted to cut up, and they had this 5-week patch cycle, because Genshin is very consistent, unlike Honkai, which is very inconsistent when it comes to its patch cycle. One patch can be 5 weeks, then the next patch is 7 weeks, the patch after that is 6 weeks. It's never constant.
But I'm kind of happy that you brought up, your experience being a player of Genshin Impact. I mean, you've mentioned also previously, I think it was also in the Twitter, that even though you're a player and you enjoy the game pretty much, you're not planning to like be also the content creator for this platform, right? Sorry, for this title.
It's not that I'm not planning. It's not that fatalist.
It's not at the top of your list. Yeah, sorry.
Yes, it's something like that. Genshin is a game I enjoy very, very much playing, and it's a game that it's very relaxing to me. You know, that type of game that, I don't know, Saturday night you make some hot chocolate or some tea and you put on a nice live stream in the background and you only play a game to relax. Well, that's Genshin for me. And
perfect.
I don't want to feel pressured learning everything or doing every new bit of content as soon as it comes out, like I do with Honkai.
Yeah, because then it can kill the fun part, right, about the game if you want to be like on top of things. And
yes.
Yeah, it's good to have also something just to play for fun, right? Not to
yes,
be...
and I also think that there are so many content creators that tackle the lore of Genshin that do a very, very good job, that I feel like my time and my work is much more needed in the Honkai space, where there are very few people that do this.
Yeah, I think that before you actually appeared in the on the YouTube, and it was like nearly 2 years ago, right? I think there almost 2 years now, right?
Not quite. It's more so in 1 year and 4 months.
Okay.
Because my first video was in September 2021. Yeah.
Yeah, I think prior to this, there haven't been too much of a specific lore breakdown content. I think there have been some gameplays or the general thoughts about the new chapters, but when it comes to the new stuff, to the new players, there wasn't too much really to understand the concepts.
I remember that before me, there was Potato Almanac that was covering lore. Also, Zikadla did some theories back then.
And she's rather streamer, right? She's also adding some theories, but
yes, but she is more so one of those lore focused streamers like Island and UD, who don't necessarily stream to showcase the gameplay, but more so to showcase their experience with the story. So I would still call that lore streamers in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of different type of the content because you're like streaming and discussing as you go. But yeah.
Yeah, but if we talk only in a video format, I think it was only Potato Almanac at that time who did content.
Right. And, I will try to tie back to the question that I've asked a couple of minutes ago. So I was trying to think about potential collaborations, if you have ever considered them. And I asked this question because when I saw your first videos, my first idea was like, oh, so right now we have like Teyvat Historia, but for Honkai Impact. That was my initial thought, and I was like, finally, so we can have somebody to break down these like, amazingly, convoluted concepts into simpler stuff for all of us. And I was so happy that I found your channel. So actually, I was thinking about, and that's my dream, kind of, if it'll happen, I need to go and buy a bottle of champagne and drink it while watching. I would love to see a collaboration between you and Teyvat Historia. Like, everybody knows that, HoYoverse is kind of giving simple hints, sometimes more or less subtle, that the same multiverse, is just having all the games inside. I would love to see you guys discussing the depths of the game from two different spaces. Like you would be, in the Honkai Impact space, and Teyvat Historia would be referring from the Genshin Impact space. I wonder how many new interesting concepts we could have learned from just you two guys speaking. I just wonder.
I mean, it would be interesting. But I don't know if Teyvat Historia would be interested in that, since I know that he doesn't really play Honkai or has any relationship with the game. I know he tried to stream it once or twice, but
Mhm.
Uh,
I believe that the idea was that he wanted to start, and maybe I remember it wrong. So sorry if I missed that. But I think that he was kind of hyped for the Star Rail for a while to try to give it a thought. So maybe that could be the tipping point.
Yeah.
I mean, anyway, still, I see these two giants, right? You and him just speaking about lore. It'll be amazing, right? Maybe in some Comic-Con in the future years, it'll become a reality or something.
I mean, who knows? I'm not against the idea, but like I said, it's very complicated to do this kind of collaborations in a meaningful way, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that's definitely something that needs to be thoroughly thought, but especially for all the for all the HoYoverse games, I think that the lore of each and every one of these is so like complex that it really takes a person with determination to break down and to understand it in a like very thorough way. So having these kind of people talk, would totally blow my mind. And on top of that, I would add maybe, I don't know, Marisa Honkai or Saya and Yang. There are also players of the Tears of Themis. I mean, I believe that you mentioned that you kind of checked the story, not really being an active player. But as I think you've pointed out, it also have like multi-layered story with more subtle references to the other Honkai games. But I just wonder, from that kind of discussion, how many new things we could have learned.
Yeah, but the thing with Tears of Time is it doesn't really have strong story-related references in what's happening. It's more so Easter eggs. Like they have
That's
Homu
correct.
World, they have a lot of slimes referencing Genshin Impact. It's more so those kind of references rather than...
Do you know, for example, that they also have a bar out there in the Stelly City, which is called The Abyss? So there's a bar where you can...
Yeah, I know, I know.
So, yeah, and obviously the eyes of the people in the game, right? It's a reference. It might be a reference to the Khaenri'ah, right? From Genshin. So
yeah, I don't think so, but yeah, I saw some people referring to that.
Mm-hmm. And potentially, because I'm kind of an active player of Tears of Themis as well, so there is this concept behind the game that there is some kind of like, and I can't really remember, it's some kind of a drug or some kind of a substance which makes people, which is kind of being researched for the sake of being immortal. But in the end, just researching that creates a lot of cases where people die, like with cancer and this kind of reactions of their bodies. So initial thought, hey, so do they really want to try to invent the Honkai energy, but in a pill or something? So there haven't been too much of a lore drop yet on what is actually this substance. But except for it was found like in a deep sea, whatever that means, like in 1950s, so around 80 years before the actual situation in the game right now. But yeah, I'm just waiting for this to happen,
I mean,
and
who
I
knows?
hope that...
But I think that they like to reuse some thematical aspects in each of their games. Like we have Honkai Energy in the Honkai Impact, then GGZ, then we have Forbidden Knowledge in Genshin that acts in a very similar manner, but it's something different. And we have the Stellar on Corruption in Honkai Star Rail that again it's very similar. So yeah, they really like to reuse some ideas and some themes. They're not the same, but they function in a very similar manner.
So you believe it's more like an Easter egg instead of just being a hint, like, okay, so this is the same universe or multiverse. It's like
I think that all of them happen in the same universe. That has been confirmed multiple times, and there are a lot of mistranslations, especially in the Honkai Impact Third, on the Honkai Impact Third part, because Honkai Impact Third translates the word worlds into universes, and that gave the people idea that HoYoverse happens in a multiverse, but it doesn't happen in a multiverse. It happens in one universe, which they refer to in the interviews as the Honkai universe, which has different worlds. And what we describe as universes in Honkai Impact Third are actually worlds in GGZ and Honkai Star Rail and so on. Okay. So there are a lot of stuff that they explain, especially through different interviews, and a lot of materials from GGZ, for example, that is lost, and where they go in depth in how this concept of shared universe works for all the games. But a lot of people don't really know these things, so they go with the most and the easiest version of events, which is this whole multiverse thing. But it's not a multiverse; it's a single universe encapsulating different worlds.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I hope that maybe one day you could bring us all closer to understand these concepts. I think you kind of mentioned, and I think there is a one short video around the GGZ or the Honkai Gakuen. I mean, right now with the Star Rail being released in like a couple of weeks, it might not be on the top of your priority list these days, but is there still some possibility that we might have heard from you around the Honkai Gakuen games and their universes and connections to the other games?
Actually, I've been working on a video trying to explain all of this, but I still do research, because this is a lot of stuff, and like you said right now, it's not very high in my priority list, because I want to focus right now on this last arc with Honkai Impact Third and on Honkai Star Rail later this month. But I've been doing research on this since January, and I tried to take every known moment in each and every game where they're explain how this Honkai universe works. All right, from GGZ. GGZ has a lot of explanations on, and establishes a lot on how the universe works. But not even in main game. There are light novels in GGZ that go over this stuff.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And those are very interesting. And also, even in Honkai Impact Third, we have Otto with his imaginary tree theory. We have Einstein in the anti-entropy visual novel with the many worlds theory. Then we have Honkai Star Rail, which introduces 4 more theories to that. And it's very complicated to make sense of everything.
We will never be bored with the writers from HoYoverse, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
they're just keeping us entertained.
I mean, I think you really need to be a masochist to try to explain everything, and I can see why so many people, so few people try to tackle the lore of the whole Honkaiverse and choose to focus on a single game, because it's much easier. If you try to go out of bounds and connect dots between everything, it becomes a mess very, very quickly and a headache. And like I said, you have to be a masochist to do this. But I like a good challenge, and I said that sometimes this year I want to make this video, and it will be a big one.
Oh, then I'd love to see that, and I'm pretty sure that I'm not speaking just for myself. As you mentioned, not many players are actually, well informed about the GGZ. Around time when I was about to start to play this game, they have took it off from the global servers, I think. Even though on Chinese ones, I think the game is still having pretty good times, right? So
yes,
the story is still evolving.
Both in Chinese and on the Japanese server is still going strong. And the story is reaching its climax right now for their version of part 2, which is reborn.
Oh, so it's
that's
getting
really
to a
cool.
finale of the second part.
Exactly,
Wow, okay.
exactly, and it's very interesting because I think at this point more than half of the cast died these last few chapters.
Oh, wow! So it's like a
So
Game of Thrones, or
if imagine it like this: if Honkai Impact was this good ending about hope and about how we embrace love and we move forward, GGZ is the total opposite. It's slaughter.
Oh my God.
It's gory.
Oh, wow.
It's basically in GGZ the will of
Ouch.
you know that we have the will of Honkai in Honkai Impact 3rd, which is Prometheus number 17 that was basically hacked the cocoon of finality to make sure that it will repeat the Herschel cycle and give Kevin the authority of finality. Well, in GGZ, the will of Honkai is an actual concept. It's an actual will of the Honkai, and it's an asshole. And it's an asshole that it's a maniac that likes to torture the cast and do and mentally break them, and it's totally different from the ending of Honkai Impact 3rd.
So I thought like the bad ending of the GGZ was when the Herrscher of Finality descended, right? Because that was the end of part 1, right? When, as you mentioned, also all of the players, all of the characters, all the cast was like, they haven't wiped out. But you're saying like there is even second part to this. Wow.
Yes. And I will say it, the ending of Retrospective, which is part 1 of GGZ, looks cute in comparison to what's going on now.
Now you're saying that, I'm not sure if I want to see this comparison video anymore. If it's this much brutal, but yeah, I think that the curiosity wins. I bet it won't kill the cat.
The comparison will be more so between how the overarching universe works, not really how their story work, because they are very different stories. I even saw a lot of people saying that Honkai should have ended like GGZ now, but a lot of that, a lot of blood, a lot of gore doesn't necessarily mean a good ending or a better ending, because
I see.
Both Honkai and GGZ are very different, and they tell their story very differently. So you can't really compare them.
Yeah. From that perspective, I mean, are you an active player of the Honkai Gakuen or GGZ? Or you're just kind of following the development of the story?
I follow the development. I don't really play it.
All right. But yeah, I mean, at least for the lore building, I think like we can have some diamonds there, right? Some specific lore drops that could potentially help us to understand the big HoYoverse idea. So yeah, it'll be great to see that happening in the future. I mean, from the perspective of you explaining these concepts to us.
For sure. I'm also very excited to make this video, but it's very hard because I have to take all these different interpretations and all these different ideas from not 4 games and try to present them in a way that makes sense, which is very hard. And there are a lot of inconsistencies especially in translation for the English version, because, for example, there's no such thing as a multiverse. This was mentioned even in the lore. It was mentioned in GGZ that there's a single universe. There's no such thing as a multiverse, right? Well, Star Rail comes across and mentions the word multiverse in its Eon lore, and I'm like, okay, which is true,
And you're saying it might be the translation issue or just inconsistency?
Yeah, I think it's a translation issues, because for this thing, interestingly enough, the most reliable answers you will find in the dev interviews, not inside the games itself. Because, like I said, one, they have unreliable narrators, so a character can give you a 20-minute explanations and later found out that it was all for nothing. It was all wrong because you found out new stuff. So the best source for learning how the ropes works is developer interviews, because there are quite a few of them in which they explain their vision.
Perfect. But at least, well, there is some sort of concept to which we can like dive in, and yeah, maybe we can find some good stories there. So really, fingers crossed. I hope to that this video will be a quite interesting one. I mean, it will be definitely if it comes from you. So
I mean,
yeah,
I hope so.
I can't wait.
I hope. I also hope that I will be able to finish it, and I won't go mad while doing it.
Yeah, please take your time. You mentioned that it takes a lot of editing and stuff, and I think that I can speak from most of your fans and subscribers, at least. Like just we all need to take care about our content, and we need to take care about our maybe our followers and the stuff that we do, but we won't be able to do that if we won't take care of ourselves. So please take your time. There's no need to be hurried. Although this time right now seems to be pretty intense, ending of the Honkai Impact, the beginning of the new Star Rail game. It'll be pretty intense, but yeah, I hope that you won't feel rushed, and you'll be able to take your own time and pace to create amazing content that you do for us.
Well, thank you. I'll try to do my best. Like I never try to rush things. Like I can, if I wanted to, I can come out with 3 videos the next week, but it won't be the same, right? I think that the extra work I put into my content to make sure that there is a minimum of quality in it, and it's not just just me talking over a bunch of random footage helps a lot. And I like to believe that this is one of the reasons that I was able to grow an audience, because people saw that I try to do my best to and do this extra effort into the way I present things. And yeah, so
yeah, well, I mean, definitely thank you so much for your hard work. This is really a blessing to have you, creating these all that content for us.
I know it's my pleasure. I like doing it. Or otherwise, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, so we will be looking forward for all the new stuff coming in from you. And I think on that note, we might want to close here. So before we end this podcast, is there any final message you'd like to give to the listeners?
Well, thank you very much for having me here today. And like I said, it's an honor to be invited on a podcast to talk about the Honkai lore. It's something I am very passionate about. It's something that I really like to do. And if my content helped you or anyone that watches the podcast in any way, shape or form, I'm very happy, and I truly appreciate all of your support. So yeah, thank you.
Perfect. All the pleasure is on us. Thank you so much, Homu, for being able to join us here today. So yeah, thank you all for listening. If you'd like to see more content from Homu Labs, I will put some links into the description, so feel free to check. But I'm pretty sure that by this time you already know the channel. Still, I'll add it in the description. So thank you so much, everyone. And yeah, have a good day. See you next time.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.